Just to let everyone know as well, we're currently live on YouTube. I'll just wait for a couple more people to join if they're waiting, and then we'll get started. Okay, how is everyone? I can see some people. Give me a thumbs up if you're doing good. Great, lots of thumbs up. Nice. Okay. Hello, I'm Georgia. Welcome to Enterprise Hub. Thank you for joining us tonight. For those who don't know, Enterprise Hub is a free business service that helps people looking to start a business or considering self-employment. WOW is the first and only creative partner of Enterprise Hub who can offer free startup business advice to you. It's open to anyone 16 plus living in the Liverpool City region. And tonight we're going to be talking to our writer in residence, Ciarán, about some career-related things, becoming published, what to do after you're published, working freelance and that kind of thing. And if any of the stuff that we talk about is of interest to you, you can email Amy at Writing on the Wall. I'll put her email address in the chat for more business advice, if you're considering writing freelance, that kind of thing. Just a free drop-in service to ask some questions about that. So yeah, I will introduce Ciarán now, who I'm sure most of you are familiar with, but just in case, Ciarán, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Ciarán is a Georgia-born, multi-award winning spoken word poet. I've probably just butchered your hometown, so very sorry about that.
Don't worry about it.
His debut collection, Cosmocartography, also butchered your debut, so it's going good, was shortlisted for the Rubery Book Award 2019, toured the UK and Ireland for 30 days, and was featured on national, regional and local press on both sides of the pond. He was named one of the region's most exciting spoken word performers by The Independent, a highlight of Guy Garvey's Meltdown Festival at the South Bank Centre in London, and a powerhouse poet at the top of his game by Lingo Festival Dublin. So thank you for joining us. First of all, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really looking forward to this. I love people slipping over my name, the name of the collection, the name of my hometown. It's great.
You've
I
not
wait
made
for
it easy
every
for
time.
anyone.
No, I don't. I love it.
I was so ready. I was like, Cosmocartography, and then immediately
I know. I love it.
fudged it.
I love
it. Whilst we're talking about cosmocartography, a lot of people, I assume, have signed up for this Enterprise Hub session is because we talk to our different writers in residence typically about how to get off the ground if you're just starting writing, and how to make those next steps to getting published. And I think what you wanted to talk about was a little bit more beyond that. So people who are, you know, maybe they've got a publishing deal, or they're thinking about self-publishing and they already have, and then where to take it from there. But I thought that we would go down the traditional first question of how did you get your first poetry collection published, and what was that process like for you?
Yeah, that's a great place to start, of course, because not everyone will have something coming up or ready to go. So it's a great place to start. So my publisher, Burning Eye Books, are an independent publisher based in Bristol that specialise in publishing spoken word. So with the independent presses, they will tend to have an open call, which is exactly what it might sound like. It's a call for anyone to submit their work and be considered for publication. At that stage, it doesn't tend to be a full manuscript that you need going into it. Some places do, some places don't. So if you're thinking about getting published, just check out what the kind of parameters are that you need to work within. But for the manuscript submission, I had to submit a bio, which hopefully everyone has kind of ready to go. You should all have a bio at this stage if you're thinking about publishing. A blurb for the book. Mine did change quite considerably as I was developing the book. since getting the contract for it. My publisher is really flexible like that. It still aligns to the same kind of themes, and the same poems are going to be included, but the blurb did change. If anyone wants to have a little go at writing blurbs, you can check out the workshop I did last week on putting together your collection. There's a little section at the end of putting blurbs together, because they're a really odd way of writing. I think we often feel like quite pretentious, so we're blowing smoke up our own arses because we have to sort of build this collection up to sound really great, and we can use really generic terms like reflects on, explores, that kind of thing, which is kind of going to happen one way or another. But your blurb is essentially just a little bit of what to expect from the collection. How are you going to feel reading it, and what does it contain, what theme does it cover, and how does it do that? And my blurb again evolved with the development of the manuscript, so I think it's something people should start thinking about now if they're thinking about publishing, because it will change and develop with you. It's almost like a very creative piece in itself. It's not just a simple piece of marketing copy. It's something that takes a lot of time, so start that now almost. And then a little plan of how I would kind of market the book itself. Obviously, as an independent publisher, they don't have the resources in which to book me a 30-date tour in 2 countries, and I kind of preferred that. I liked having the agency and the autonomy over where I went, what I did with it. I've been working in the arts as a project manager for a couple of years, so it kind of tied into the skills that I've already got. So if anyone's out there working in admin or office-based jobs, you should have those skills to hand already, just keeping yourself organized and keeping yourself planned. And I had a manuscript of about 10 poems that I felt represented the wider selection of poetry. So I put my best foot forward. I put my best poems in there to try and represent the quality of writing that was going to be in the collection, and also the themes and the way in which it was going to be presented to the world. And obviously, as a spoken word publisher, I highlighted my more spoken word pieces than the pieces that some people may say live more on the page. I'm really against that sort of ridiculous binary that poems are either on the page or on the stage. They're obviously both. But yeah, I kind of put those ones first and foremost so that the publisher could see, I know what you publish and I want to be published in that kind of collection. So at that very early stage, you just send off your submission, wait a couple of months for it to come back. And then if it's a yes, then you'll start talking about when you want to bring it out, what's going to be happening around it, and you have quite a lot of work to do then to finish the collection, I suppose, is the next step of putting that together. So it was a relatively easy process in order to actually submit it, because I had a bio, I knew what kind of poems I wanted. I've been writing for a good number of years and had a fairly big body of work on which to pull from to put stuff into the collection. But thinking about how I would market it and the blurb itself were probably the most difficult things, because I hadn't thought about that before. So I would definitely recommend people to kind of think about all those different aspects at the submission stage, so that if they do ask those questions, you've got the answers in your back pocket ready to go.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Like, there's definitely a lot of, whether you're self-publishing or going through publishers, there's a lot of marketing involved, even from that very early stage. And I know there's a lot of questions sometimes with people on our Right to Work course about marketing yourself and like crafting that persona, and it's really difficult. I mean, I do marketing for WoW. I work in marketing, and it's very different marketing an organization than it is marketing an individual. Like, they're completely different processes, really. How has that been for you? Is there anything you've learned in regards to that? And how do you sort of like build up that profile once you have got published as well?
Yeah, I think I was very lucky in that I'd been traveling to perform and compete in slams for a number of years. So I felt like I kind of had a bit of an audience there anyway, to kind of at least do some initial marketing too. And then I built it up through different ways that we can chat about later. But yeah, I think I struggle with marketing myself because I don't want to come across like too up myself, which I think it can when you're promoting your own work. It feels a little bit crass is one way I might describe it. So I just try to be kind of as honest and as myself as possible. You know, just kind of saying it how I would normally say it. I don't sort of sit there and think, okay, I have to put on my marketing hat now and do this in a really professional way. Obviously, it is professional, and you know, I've checked my grammar and my spelling and all that kind of normal stuff. But I think I just try to approach it in as me and just be like, hey, this thing is coming out. Like, let's celebrate it. Let's have a party. Let's, you know, get involved, kind of thing. And I think if you can encourage your audience to get involved, maybe there's something for them to come and do. Like, what's the call to action that you want in each particular piece of marketing that's going out there? Is it to just kind of introduce that this is happening in a couple of months and you're just sort of doing the initial introduction? Is it to buy tickets? Is it to buy the book? Is it to share it, you know, share a video or something around it? I was really fortunate as well in that I reached out to an amazing group in London called Muddy Feet Poetry, who do these brilliant sort of poetry videos where they'll just, you know, record you in their studio. And I've seen them do it really nicely where it's not like, it's not too art housey where there's like a whole list of stuff going on, but they'll just put you in a set or a particular place that has resonance for what you're doing. So I knew that from the collection, one of the two poems that I thought would be like the kind of flagship poems of the collection. So I got them recorded as videos, and one of them came out to help promote the launch of the book and the early stages of the tour. And then I had another one come out towards Christmas time. The book came out in October, and I was touring up until kind of February, March time, I think. And I used that to then kind of refresh people's memory, keep the momentum going, rather than just trying to plug the same thing all the time. And that first poem had quite a strong reaction. It was viewed something like 6,000 times within 24 hours or something like that. It was pretty incredible. It wasn't viral by any sort of standards, but it felt pretty viral to me because I've never had that kind of impression. I was seeing it everywhere on social media, and it just carried. I didn't really have to sort of do much with that. It just sort of carried. There was a bit of momentum behind that itself, and I think that was a huge confidence booster to see that take off like that. And it was reaching people who I'd never met before, so it was kind of starting to travel outside my initial circle, which is great. And that's something to say to people, is if you've got something in there that might attract other people to it, that might say something about a particular group of people. So this poem was How to Be an Irish Immigrant. So I did think that it would be picked up by Irish people, because it's speaking to them, it's speaking for them. So that was a really efficient way for me to kind of push a lot of marketing on that. And but yeah, just approaching it like myself. I wasn't trying to be anybody else. I wasn't trying to sound different. I just kind of wanted to sound like myself, but be professional, and be nice about it, I suppose, and just sort of be like, it's here, it's happening. You know, it'd be great if you could be there. Like, I'm not very heavy-handed when it comes to the language around it. I'm just like, here's a thing, take it or leave it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like years ago, really, like when it was social media was like really taking off as like a way for freelance artists to promote themselves. There was a big thing of like appearing like very professional and sort of having a separation between your life and your actual self and your working professional self. But like now people are realizing that most people just people actually like is other people, and just seeing other people be normal and like them, and that relatability. And like you get it with big brands now who are trying to like give their social media managers a voice, and they're trying to be like really relatable and down to earth and stuff. So I think that's interesting. And I think it's like, I mean, obviously because I'm interested in poetry, like stuff I see on social media is going to be like, I do follow like poetry accounts and things, but I think it's also, there's like a little subsection of social media that really gravitates towards that, and you'll have like poetry like retweeted on Twitter and that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. What is your thoughts on like social media? Because you can have like, I don't know, you can have um, it's a good thing to be like genuine on social media and really show who you are, but it can also, as the more your platform increases, be quite dangerous as well.
Yeah, my first point of social media would be like not use it sparingly. It's a tool. Learn how to use it for yourself. Don't just dive into it kind of willy-nilly without recognizing the impact it's going to have on you, because
Yeah.
we know unequivocally from personal experiences people have had to research that's been done in very well established research centers that social media is having a damaging effect on our mental health, and our creativity. So I think it's really important for people to understand how they want to use it and the boundaries they need to set themselves, because it's designed to keep you engaged. So you need to come at it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
Luckily I've never really had any sort of like negative reaction to stuff that I've put online. I'm quite lucky in that sense, but you just have to kind of let that be water off a duck's back, because you should expect that, because that's what social media is like nowadays.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the most important thing is to just know how you're using it, because you can get really sucked into it and it not have that much of an effect. It's there to
Yeah.
get the most money out of you. So it's going to, paid adverts and stuff like that. It's going to find a way to make those not effective. So you'll spend more money on it,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So what I wanted to do was, with the videos, was create something that people could enjoy watching, that would actually have some kind of positive effect on their life, rather than just an advert for something, and use that to kind of piggyback stuff. I wasn't that strategic about it, but that's kind of how it worked. People were happy to listen to this and read it and related to it, and that kind of helped it carry, rather than just a photograph of the book cover and a load of dates kind of thing. That wasn't. I didn't feel. It just, for me, it didn't feel like enough, and it didn't feel like a valuable way to market something. I wanted people to feel invited to the collection by showing them something. But that said, I wouldn't put too much online about what's in. So I've seen a trend of people get a poem published, say in a magazine or a journal, and then them taking a photograph of it and putting it on Instagram. And I'm like, you've now just kind of defeated the purpose a little bit, because whilst that's great and people will be able to read that poem or that piece, the whole point is for people to go and buy the magazine. Not that, not to say that that's the only point, but that company needs to make money. And also that person might have a great experience reading that magazine, because they'll be introducing new poets who they don't know. So I kind of struggle with that a little bit, about saying like, oh, I'm in this great book, here's the poem in it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
why have you done that? You've just kind of undersold yourself there a little bit.
Yeah. You can't give them everything.
Yeah,
You've got to
exactly.
give it.
Sometimes you've got to tease them with it rather than give it to them.
Yeah.
So I struggle with that, and I struggle with, strictly poetry accounts where it's just about
Yeah.
publishing the newest poem that they have, or even like Insta poetry. It's not really my bag.
Yeah.
I just think it's not doing it. It's just in the wrong space. I don't think it's in the right. I don't think it's in the right space. And there's a little bit of something about the instant gratification of say, if you're, and I've done it myself before. I've published something that I thought was great, a sentence here, and I kind of didn't really feel great after it, because I was like, oh, I actually want to develop that into something different now, but it feels like it's stuck in stone almost. And I think it can stop us from developing pieces further, because we might be a little bit happy with it, so we want to share it with people, and then we don't think that it could be improved or developed any further. And I just think I'm someone who's quite happy to disappear from social media and not post about it for months, because I'm busy having a life and trying to develop the next thing that comes my way. I can't spend all my time and energy on social media, or I'd never write again. I have to disappear from it. So my account probably looks quite bare. And I do only really tend to promote stuff that I'm doing. But that's why I've set that account up to be specific for that stuff. So people who want to follow me but maybe aren't my friends and don't want to connect with me personally on social media, they're just seeing what they need to see. I do find that I get quite good, like statistics on it, because when that people know when that account is being posted, something's happening that they might be able to come along to, take part in, listen to, read, or whatever. So yeah, I think because I'm quite sparing with it, I probably lose out some traction because I'm not constantly at the, the foot of the machine, giving it the content it needs for that day. But those people who are engaged with it will know that I'm not posting something just for the sake of posting it. I'll post
Yeah.
something when it's kind of time to. So that probably means I'm really bad at social media.
Well, I think you've got a good balance though. Like it is a really thin line because marketing trends suggest that we like to see authenticity and genuine people, but the more of yourself that you put online, the more dangerous that is because any negative criticism is going to feel like a personal
Personal.
attack.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want to, you don't want to give people everything, but you do have to have a bit of a presence. But I feel like you've got like a good balance
Oh, that's good.
between those
Great.
two
I'll
things.
take that. I'll take that. And also as well, sometimes I tried this before, but I wasn't sure how successful it was about trying to be a little bit more open about the challenges of
Mm,
being a creative person, because we know that we just see other people being successful all the time, and that has an
yeah,
impact on our mental
yeah,
health.
definitely.
And I quite like, if not if I'm going through something, I'm not like using it as a journal or anything, but I
Yeah,
have sometimes just put the question out there to be like, how do people deal with this? Like, let's have a conversation, let's have a chat. It's not all rainbows and roses. Like, I think it can be healthy to do that, but you also have to be okay with being perceived to not having it all together. And that
yeah,
can be quite a vulnerable thing to be like, I don't want people to know that I don't know what I'm doing, but I do want people to know I don't know what I'm doing. So it's a very thin
yeah,
line about like, am I happy for people to know that I'm struggling a little bit? Because some people might just respond like, "Oh, are you okay? Like, what's going on?" And it's like, "No, I'm fine. Like, I just actually want to have the conversation about it. Like, I think it's
yeah,
interesting. It's removed from any sort of personal trauma. I just want to
yeah,
have the conversation because I want people to know that we're all doing this together. So why do we don't have to just see people winning awards that we didn't win, or getting contracts we didn't get, or getting opportunities we didn't get, because that can be incredibly damaging personally and
yeah.
creatively."
Yeah, I think that's why I prefer like Twitter to Instagram because Instagram is like this constant like look how great my life is and this like shiny
Hmm.
thing, and then Twitter people are like, oh my God, this is really hard, isn't it?
Yeah,
um
yeah,
it's like yeah, you get more genuine like thoughts on Twitter, I think, but yeah, you do have to be careful as well, I think. um but yeah, that is part of the like being genuine is that people will relate to that because like everyone has imposter syndrome and no one really knows what they're doing. So people like to see other creative people that they look up to, especially have the same, like want to talk
absolutely.
about that and the same
Yeah.
struggles and stuff. Um, moving away from marketing a bit, you talked about your book tour a little. You had quite a short gap between being published and going on a 30-day book tour. So I just wanted to know what that was like.
It
Um,
was, yeah, it was
yeah,
brilliant. Tour, I loved being on tour. It was exhausting because I was having to manage a full-time job as well as traveling around the country and touring. Um, I absolutely loved it. It felt incredible to like carry this thing with me that I'd worked on and share it with people. Um, so the tour, once the manuscript was finalized and out of my hair, I started to focus on the tour, and I just wrote down a list of all the spoken word nights that I've been to or have a relationship with. I didn't really want to go cold calling too much because it didn't feel like a valuable use of my limited time and energy. And I wanted to share it with people who would kind of be open to receiving it in that sense. So we previewed it in Liverpool at Beers for Queers down in District, obviously with the support of WoW, which was amazing to be able to do. And I had people turn up from a job I used to work in like 6, 7 years ago who I don't even think knew I was there that night. And it was just this really sort of synchronous thing. And it was like, this is brilliant. This is exactly why I've done it this way. It was National Poetry Day. So there was already a kind of a lift to it. It was Beers for Queer. So there was already a lift to it. It was supported by WoW. So it was lifted again. And I think it was supported by the Irish Festival as well. So it was, I just kind of pulled in all these partners to be like, just
yeah,
bring me different bodies, like let's have a fun time. We had a great night, but that stage is like a proper stage. Like
yeah.
you're like above people, and it feels very strange performing in poetry to a room full of people who came for a disco and a dance. So I pitched that as a preview, because I wanted the first kind of opening night to be in my hometown. It just felt appropriate. There's not a huge amount of creative work happening in my hometown for people to go and see, and spoken word even less so. So I really wanted to kind of bring this work home in a sense that felt really important to me. And that was probably the most effort I had put into any one of the gigs, because I had to negotiate with the venue, negotiate contracts and fees and things like that myself. They were very generous, and we had a very happy, equitable split between doors and all this kind of stuff. I paid for some artists to come and perform. So I brought my friends Rose Kondo and Ciarán King, who've been huge supporters of my work, and Ciarán wrote the foreword for the book. And it felt really important to bring them with me, because they've kind of been with me on this journey for as long as I've been writing in the UK, and I wanted them to be there. And I wanted people at home to experience other kinds of spoken word that they wouldn't hear before. Rose is Canadian and has got a wonderful style. Ciarán's from Salford and has got an amazing style himself. So I wanted people to kind of be exposed to different kinds of writing and kind of performances. And then I asked Abby Oliveira, who's a Derry-based poet, to come down and perform as a sort of featured support act. I'd seen Abby perform across Dublin loads of times before at Lingo Festival and other stuff, and she's just absolutely incredible. And I knew she would pull a crowd, you know. I knew she would absolutely pull a crowd. That's why you book people like that. But she was someone who really inspired me, just from having her work in the world. Like, she really inspired me to continue to write and to continue to make work. And she's just a really awesome person. I just kind of wanted to share that with people. And she brought something else that me, Ciarán, and Rose didn't bring to the table. So it was a real sort of delicatessen picnic night for everyone. There's a little bit of something there for everybody. And then we just promoted the hell out of it. You know, we had posters made. We were doing Facebook groups and all that kind of stuff. And that was the most investment I'd made in any one of the gigs, because there wasn't a regular night happening in Drogheda for me to just kind of piggyback on the back of. And that was awesome. Like, my friends and my family were there. My mates from uni flew over and surprised me by just sitting in the front row. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And that really gave me the kind of momentum and the energy then to go and do this brilliant, tiring, crazy tour. And like I said, I just kind of went knocking on doors that I felt were possibly already open for me, people who knew me, knew my work, and they didn't really have to sort of do much vetting in terms of who is this guy and why is he coming here, because I might pick the wrong night and end up going to a really strange event that I'm not really not wanted, but I don't really fit there and they don't want to listen to it, kind of thing. So yeah, we did like Manchester, Salford, London. Did London a few times because obviously it's so big. Bristol, Birmingham, Newcastle, Glasgow, Edinburgh. Yeah, all over. I can't quite remember everywhere else. We did Dublin and Drogheda, Huddersfield, Halifax, Derby. Yeah, there was about 30 dates, I think, spread over a couple of months, just to kind of give me time to rest and sleep. And I really loved that. It was great to be able to sort of pack my bags full of books and get on a train and think, you know, poetry has given me this. Like, my work has given me the opportunity to travel and see people who I love and want to spend time with, and share my work with people. And I've got friends all over the place, so it was nice as well to kind of bring it to places where I've got those communities where it just made sense to do that, right? So I was very lucky in that sense that I had a bit of a network happening. I wasn't necessarily knocking on doors that people didn't know who I was. And interestingly, there was maybe 2 nights that I had been speaking to, and then I just got a bit of a weird vibe, and I was like, I don't really like this process. It feels a little bit strange to me. Like, this is not my normal. So I just kind of pulled out and was like, I'm really sorry, something's come up, I can't do that night. I gave them plenty of advance. I didn't cancel on the day or anything like that. I gave them months of time to bring somebody else in. And whilst I might have burnt those bridges because I haven't spoken to those groups or those programmers or producers since, I'm kind of not really that arse, because I'm like, if I got a bad vibe, I don't really want to be going there. Like,
Yeah.
it just felt a bit aggressive. The person wasn't making their particular process, which was quite unique, clear to me. And I was like, I feel like I'm having to jump through hoops
Yeah.
when I'm providing you with free content. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
asking you to pay me because you don't know me. Whereas other places, they were super clear. They were like, okay, great. The fee is X. You can sell your work here. We'll take £1 off every book just for, just to sort of keep that's great. You'll have 25 minutes and you'll be the second act. Straight off the bat, they knew what I needed to know. And I was like, brilliant, fantastic. That's wonderful. Some places it was a little bit like I turned up on the day and the host who was meant to be the host wasn't the host because they had an accident and I had to speak to somebody else who didn't really know who I was, which is a bit embarrassing for me, but a bit embarrassing for them that they don't know who the headline feature of their night is. And they were like, oh, where would you like to perform? And I was like, well, traditionally your headliner goes last, so I think last would be good. So there was some of that stuff where I felt like I was kind of doing people's jobs a little bit for them.
Yeah.
But there was most of the nights where like, here's the offer, take it or leave it. And I was like, I'll take the offer. Thank you very much. Because you've made it clear to me. So I know that that's going to be what I get. And I'm quite happy for that. People were, if it was somewhere where I knew really well, people were offering for me to stay in their houses, which is very generous of people. Even some places I didn't know people and ended up sleeping in like people's front rooms that I'd never met before, which is maybe not a situation that everyone wants to put themselves in for, but I was like, hey, fine, whatever, like this is great. And that was funny. It was funny and it was fun. And those people, there's new relationships there where I feel like I can chat to those people now and in the future. So yeah, I would say you don't have to, what I'm trying to illustrate with that sort of a long-winded story is go to the easiest ports of call first. Go to where you are known, because they're going to be easy to manage. They're going to be easy to market because that's assuming you have a network there. And they're probably going to be more fun. As you get into the cold calling stage, the colder of the call you're making, just be really wary about the process and if you're feeling comfortable with it. The night in particular that I kind of stepped away from, a lot of people had said, oh, it's one of the best nights in the country, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I really don't care. Like, I got a really bad vibe. I didn't like the way the process was going. And I just had to step away for my own safety, my own self-care. Like, I just didn't feel comfortable with that. And also, I value my time a little bit too much to be running through these hoops. I do this for a job, so I know how easy it can be to just do if you know what you're doing. They're making it really difficult, and I don't necessarily need them. So find your boundary for yourself. For anyone out there who's thinking about booking a tour, find that boundary for yourself and see where you're comfortable with. I also tried to make it work so that it was easy to get to and from gigs if they were back to back. So most of it was usually like go to the gig and come home, and then maybe the next night do that again. But there was a week, I think in November, where I went from London to Bristol to Edinburgh to Glasgow, back to Liverpool, Manchester, and then home for the weekend. So that worked out quite well because they're quite easy to get to, and it was kind of all in one direction. I wasn't coming and going. I wasn't going like London, Edinburgh, Glasgow kind of thing. I was able to kind of say, okay, I'm in Scotland for this week. What gigs can I book for that week to help myself just make the most of it? So yeah, just kind of like go where you feel naturally pulls to, naturally attracted to. Speak to people and just see if they have any other alternatives for you. Like if they can't put you up with a poetry night, ask around and just say, can you facilitate an introduction for me? Have all your stuff ready, have your like press release ready, have something to give them ready, be willing to have a conversation with them. At the time Zoom wasn't a thing, whereas now people might want to interview you on Zoom just to meet you and say hello, which is a pleasant thing to do. I think if a programmer or producer asked me to meet them on Zoom, I'd be quite happy to do that. I think I would respect them a bit more and feel a bit more comfortable because they want me to know them and them to know me before we agree to anything. So that would feel quite nice. And just be pleasant about it. Some nights were taken off the table from something outside my control, and I was like, oh, I'm a bit annoyed, but do you know what? Something else is going on. I don't need to worry about that. It's nothing to do with me. You might get no's, and you have to be okay with that because not everyone's going to like your work, or just have space for it. Try and be booking stuff at least 6 months in advance because stuff books up really, really quickly, especially the bigger nights. Like I had an opportunity to go down to London and perform at Outspoken, Joelle Taylor and Anthony and Alexa Guru's night, and I was really lucky to get in because they had, I think, just finished that night's program, and I had my heart set on doing Outspoken because I love their work. They've been incredibly supportive of me, and I feel like some of my work aligns with their vision of what Outspoken is. So yeah, I was very lucky to get that. Other nights are probably a little bit more rough and ready kind of thing, and you'll know that from just seeing how they're presenting online. But yeah, give yourself a couple of months because it will take you a couple of months to agree the date, and they'll be having those conversations with other artists much further in advance. So yeah, don't scupper yourself by doing anything too late.
Yeah, also going back to marketing a little bit, is a lot of spoken word nights and like organizations have a much bigger social media presence now than they used to, so it's definitely worth checking out because you probably like they wouldn't necessarily come into your pathway really, especially if you're mostly following like Liverpool organizations. You're not going to get recommendations for Scottish open spoken word nights, but they are there.
Yeah. And
yeah,
just to sort of return to that point, you do have to make a concerted effort to be in people's orbit before you have an ask. It's much easier to go and meet people now before you're asking them for anything, get to know them, develop your relationships authentically and genuinely. And then when you have an ask, it's much easier because they've already met you. And programmers are looking for new talent all the time. So if you're offering to come, they're probably going to be quite happy to accept because you're doing their job for them. And the fact that it's part of a tour gives that momentum, and they feel that they are part of a network. I was chatting to gangs up in Scotland. They were like, yeah, we feel very disconnected from England. The funding situation is different here, and it's difficult for us to kind of afford people to travel and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, that's why I wanted to come, because I was like, it's a new audience for me. And I just love your work and what you guys do, because they run a pristine night that's probably one of the best in the UK. It's produced exceptionally.
Who's that?
Loud Poets in Edinburgh, like they're really championing very nurturing and authentic scene to try and build a stronger culture of spoken word. And I think the same is true for Liverpool a little bit. When I arrived into Liverpool seems to be kind of looking at itself a lot and looking inward. It wasn't doing an awful lot now. But if you look at something like A Lovely Word, like Alex has opened up Liverpool spoken word scene to the whole country on a level that I've never seen before. Like there are festivals coming up in the summer, which is incredible. He knows what he's doing with that program. He knows how it works. If you were just to program Liverpool poets all the time, people would stop turning up, because if you do that anywhere, they'll stop turning up. You need fresh blood coming in and coming through, because that's how you connect the culture of one area to a nationwide kind of scene in that sense. So the Liverpool spoken word scene has developed incredibly over the last couple of years. And it's because there's fresh blood moving through and coming through, and the talent in Liverpool is getting seen elsewhere. That's the biggest impact it's having on the talent here, is that it's getting booked elsewhere. So yeah, warm your doors before you go knocking on them. And I was in that position because I was just traveling. I wanted to go and explore and meet people and compete in slams. That was one particular way. Yeah, that just helps. I think helps the process a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I've got another question, but just to remind people, if you want to ask Ciarán any questions about anything we talked about or something completely unrelated, please put them in the chat, and I'll leave about 15 minutes at the end in case anyone's got any. But yeah, just talking about like traveling and working regionally. You've worked in Liverpool, you've worked in Ireland, Birmingham, I think, or are you going to work in Birmingham?
Yeah, that's the plan, is to move down to the Midlands. I've worked in Crewe, Manchester, Liverpool, Ireland, and hopefully in the West Midlands soon.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if you could maybe talk about that a little bit, because obviously there's there's a lot to consider with like finances, and there's a lot of like upheaval with moving for work so often, like if you're a creative. So I just wanted to know how you sort of go about planning those things, and the consideration you put into yeah, your
Yeah,
finances and that kind
absolutely.
of
So
thing.
in terms of finances and funding, I looked at Arts Council funding for stuff in the UK, and I just made a call that it was too much effort for probably not uh, a
Yeah,
successful response. And I was in a position to self-fund it. Not everyone will be in that position, and I really want to recognize that because it is expensive. I had the money to kind of put down as capital against the costs of the tour, and that's also why I spread it out so I could have several paydays in between to like keep me tied over.
yeah,
Because it is expensive to tour. You're going to be paying for your travel and accommodation, food and drink. Like it's expensive, especially if you're doing lots of London stuff. But I did apply for some Irish funding because my work and the work of the other artists that I brought over from the UK was not readily available to those communities in Drogheda. So that felt like an opportunity to like offer something, but say I can't do it for free. So I got like €250 from Louth County Council for that, and that was great because it meant I could pay my artists a, a standard industry fee without it coming out of my pocket. I could put them up, I could pay for their flight, so they didn't have to pay to play at all. And I said they could bring their books, they can bring anything they want to sell. That's absolutely fine. Um, I think Rose and Kieran decided to stay in a hotel because they wanted to, and I was like, that's great, no problem. Um, you can pay for that yourself because we had space for you. They're like, that's absolutely fine. And I understand that. I would do the same because I would like my own space if I'm doing somewhere new. I wouldn't want to be at someone else's beck and call, especially in this madhouse. And that was, that funding was, it wasn't a lot, but it enabled me to put the pieces on the boards that I wanted. Um, if you can save for it, if you know it's coming up, just get yourself a little nest egg to work with because it is expensive. You will make it back if you're able to sell books and you're able to get fees from nights. Just a note on that, even though you are touring, you still can ask for a fee. Some places will offer you a full fee regardless of the fact that you're promoting something. Some places might offer you a reduced fee because you're promoting something. Some places it might be a door split. I traveled to a gig once to get £5 off the door, and it was like, great, fine, fantastic, whatever. I'm not that arsed. That's fine. It was a great night. I didn't really mind. Um, if you are touring and someone decides to try and knock you down a peg, you're an independent freelance artist. They shouldn't be trying to knock you down. You've got a call there to say, actually, step away from that because you value your time more, or if you're just doing it bit of a smash and grab for the cash and hopefully sell a few books, that's fine. They're personal calls everyone's going to have to make, but for me, most of it, there was a set fee, and sometimes there might have been a budget for accommodation or for travel, and that was really helpful as well because it was like, we'll pay for you to get here and we'll pay for you to get home, or we'll split the ticket between you and your next gig because you're not traveling just for us, you're traveling for someone else. So you can get all these little agreements and things in place.
yeah,
That can be quite helpful. And just ask politely, but ask with a sense of not like being firm, just knowing the value of your work and knowing that it's going to be expensive to tour this stuff. So don't be afraid to look at funding. If you're looking at Arts Council funding, I would say try and get your head around that as early as possible because it just looks really complicated, and I've never applied because it just looks like so much work for something that's incredibly competitive, and I just don't know if that's a good investment in my time. I
mm,
haven't got a team of people working with me to do this. I need to be careful of how I spend my time. You might find smaller pockets of money, small grants, or a festival might have some residency thing going on where they'll pay you for travel or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like you can often double up opportunities in that sense. It means you might be busier, but it means that they might just pay you to get X, Y, and Z. You could start a GoFundMe page and self-fund it, crowdfund it if you wanted to. But yeah, funding needs to be a huge consideration. And that's why I spread mine over the series of months that I did, because I knew that I would only be able to do so many gigs financially every month before my next payday was there. I was very lucky to be in a full-time job to be able to do that. So I do have a very privileged position on that. But what was the second part of the question? Sorry, I've forgotten now.
Also, just like when you've lived in different parts of the country for work, like that process, or have you always found work first and then moved somewhere? And
yeah, absolutely. I haven't got the opportunity. Whilst I was able to self-fund a tour, I haven't got the opportunity to move somewhere without work.
Yeah,
It's as simple as that. I need to pay my rent. I've got bills to pay. Yeah, and I've been lucky in that it's brought me to some cool places and some interesting spots. But I think that's the shortest time I was ever living somewhere was Manchester, and that was just because we graduated from uni. I didn't particularly think there would be any opportunities for me in Crewe. I was in Manchester for about 10 months and then moved back to Crewe for a job with the university. And whilst some people would say, or some people, I myself certainly thought, why am I moving back to this small town with not many prospects around it? It was the industry that I wanted to get into. Like, that opportunity to work there has set me up to stay in the industry of events and the arts for many, many years. So it was like, I don't need to be in the city. I don't need to be in, Manchester or Liverpool or London or whatever, because these skills I'm going to learn here will enable me to like move to Liverpool and work with Writing on the Wall, for example. So it's about knowing where you need to be at any one time. Living in Crewe was not the most exciting place in the world. Like, I love the place. I'm allowed to say that. I spent 6 years there. Like, I love the place, but it wasn't thrilling. There was not much to do on the weekend, especially when you're used to being a student there and then all your fellow students leave. It was a bit like, oh, okay, it's not the same.
yeah.
But I was like, I want to invest this time in my development, and that was important for me. So yeah, I've moved around a bit, but it's always been led by work because I've got to go where the money is to pay my bills, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, that is the case for most people, I think. But I think if like you're in a position to maybe expand your search for work, like in terms of regions and the country and stuff, I think you've also just got to like, if you have a choice between two cities or something, you've got to go where somewhere is like best for you creatively as well. Like, you've got to have good energy there. I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we've got a question from Claire. Hi Claire. You okay? Okay. Have you found that some poetry scenes in the UK are more difficult to enter or engage with in terms of being able to perform or network? If so, how do you navigate those experiences? That's a really good question.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm just trying to think if some of the difficult places I've approached have been that individual group of people and the scene they collectively have around them, or if it's a geographical thing. I can't say for certain. I'm not quite sure what the forces at play were there that made it more difficult or made it something that I ended up not going with. How I respond to it is just the way I try to respond to everyone is just with kindness and be like, cool, I'm just going to politely and gently step back from this. I'm going to communicate X, Y, or Z to the person so they don't feel that I'm rejecting them, because they may have an opportunity for me down the line. I might have an opportunity for them down the line. I don't need to burn my bridges just yet, kind of thing. I don't need to be like, oh, well, screw you. I'm not doing this. You're all crap. Because people talk and that's going to get spread around. So highly advised not to do that. I just explain, actually, I've just looked at my plans. It's probably not going to work. I can't really afford it. Or I've just booked somewhere else that's really far away the night before and I can't get there. I'm really sorry. Hopefully we can work together again soon, and best of luck. And if you give people the most amount of time to find a replacement for you, they're not going to be snarky at you. If they are, they've got something else going on and you just need to let them. It's not a reflection on you. Yeah, just be polite, be yourself, be professional at all times, and you can't force people to book you. So unfortunately, that's not really up to you. But you can kind of, grease the wheels a little bit by making yourself known to people before you go asking for something. I think it's much easier to tap into networks that you already have rather than trying to establish networks when you are on the promoting bandwagon, because it can feel very cold and very cynical. I can't tell you the amount of times I've just been sent a link from someone promoting something without even a message to say, hey, how are you? How's it been? Oh my God, it's been ages. I'd love to catch up with you. I'm on tour. I'm looking for bookings X, Y, and Z. And I find that incredibly, to the point where I block people. If someone sends me a cold message like that without even a hello, you are instantly off my. Who has time for that? Who has time? And there's an amazing poet, Faye Roberts, who posts quite. Faye runs so much stuff down, I think, in Cambridge, and they, they're a stalwart of their scene. They've kind of established their scene. They're an incredible poet who's now touring fantastically with their new book Spectrum, and Faye will put up a sort of PSA every now and again to be like, if you X, Y, or Z, do not do it because I will block you. Faye's quite open about being neurodiverse, and a lot of social media noise is quite confusing and difficult for them to kind of just cope with. And I really respect their position of do not cold call at all, and it's just going to stand against you. If you're someone who's just constantly cold calling or sending people links to something that they're doing, nah, mate, I'm not here for it. I want to be part of a network. I want to be part of a community. I don't want to be part of a notice board. Facebook and social media has just turned into a giant advert anyway. I do not need other people doing it. So it's difficult when it comes to promoting your own stuff because you need to be personable about it. You need to engage in a conversation about it before you start asking. That doesn't mean you have to check in with everyone all the time. It's okay to say, oh my God, how has it been so long? Especially with the pandemic, right? There's loads of people we haven't seen in forever. Just be yourself and be like, look, I'm touring. Can you set me up with something? Or do you know anyone I can speak to? I'd really appreciate your help. And if people help you, thank them. Like, just be like so grateful for it. Buy them a drink when you see them. Buy them a coffee. Do a nice little post on social media after the gig to say, thanks to whoever for making the connection. People like that. People like being acknowledged for this. There's a lot of unpaid work that comes with stuff like this. And you just need to be in a position to make people feel valued for that time, because otherwise you might come across like you're using people. And I really worried about that when I was booking my tour. I was like, I really hope people don't feel like I'm just using them for their gigs or whatever. I hope that didn't happen. If anyone is watching who I booked a gig with and you feel that way, please reach out and let me know.
I think everyone feels like that a bit though, don't they?
Yeah.
But it is like a mutual exchange.
Exactly. And being professional about it. Like I said, when I went to Outspoken, they were super professional. They gave me all the information I needed. And it was a mutual exchange, but we still had fun and we were still friends and we still had a great night together. Those two things don't have to compete with each other. As long as the communication's really clear and both parties are happy and know what's happening on the night, perfect, absolutely fine. If there's mixed messages or a tone that you're not liking and the person's just not really kind of like taking you along with them on the journey of what their process is like, or you just get a bad vibe, just protect yourself and step back. All you can do.
Yeah, definitely. I think just what you were saying earlier, like in marketing, there's always a big thing of it's better to have a smaller audience that's actually engaged than big numbers that aren't listening to anything you're saying. I think it's a better use of like a few hours of your time to reach out to just one person and actually form a connection with them rather than cold calling a bunch of like hundreds of people.
And if you have to cold call, make it as personable as you can. Make it concise. Don't waffle on too much because they will not read it. But for example, do not send me a link with nothing else on it, because I ain't gonna read that. I will close that down and I will mute you or block you. None of us, that might sound quite cynical or quite harsh. None of us have time to be engaging in that kind of stuff. We're not unpaid marketeers for other people. If you want me to do something for free, ask me. You wouldn't do that in real life. Do you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't
it's the
hey, do you want to hear a poem?
just handing out a flyer without saying anything, isn't it? You're just like, no one engages in that kind of communication because It's just very anonymous.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you've all had your warning. Don't send Ciarán a link to anything. I have one more question that I wanted to raise before we wrap up. So if anyone has any last minute questions, please put them in the chat. Otherwise, I will pass anything on to Ciarán. I just thought we could talk about Quakecore with Homotopia, and because that's a really good opportunity, speaking of networking, and give like a little intro to that for people who might not know what that is.
Absolutely, it's a great opportunity. I think they may have an open call going at the moment, if
I
I'm
think
not
they've
mistaken.
closed
Or is
2022,
it
so
just
I think they've
closed?
announced the Quakecore 2022.
Oh, they
So
have. Sorry, they have.
yeah,
They have.
yeah.
Yeah, so
So
Queercore is an amazing artist development opportunity with Homotopia Festival, who are incredible. So I've been chatting to Alex, who works at Homotopia, for a while about a particular piece of work that I was working on. He recommended that I apply for it. Applied for it. I can't even remember what the application process was like, but it was very simple. I know that much. And it was very like artist led, where it was like, what do you need from this? And after going to all the effort of supporting me and really paying a lot of attention to me and my work, I was like, leave me alone and let me write the thing. So I felt a bit rude. Bless Alex and Homotopia for their unwavering support in leaving me alone. But yes, I was at the stage where I was like, I'm getting lots of feedback and notes and ideas, and I'm starting to get confused with my own voice, and I can't differentiate between what's mine and what someone else's thought and opinion. So I needed to step away from that, knowing that we would have a showing of some of the work at some stage, which we did last November in the Playhouse, sorry, which was brilliant. Knowing that I had people who were wanted to get their eyes on the script, and knowing that we would have an opportunity to share some of that script, was kind of enough for me to do the thing. It forced me into a position where I was accountable to somebody else. And I think I needed that push because I was procrastinating by just doing loads of research.
yeah, I do that.
And I wasn't actually doing the thing. So I think having the courage to sign up for something like that and be seen to be accountable, I was like, well, I don't want to let them down. So I'm going to write the damn thing. So I wrote an early draft of the damn thing and we showed it. And that was incredibly helpful because it kind of showed me I could. So although I always say to Alex, from your perspective, I was probably one of the least successful people on the program because I didn't really communicate with you. You didn't really speak to me for months. For me, I will sing the praises of it because you did exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
I needed you there when I needed you, but I didn't need a constant check-in. I just needed a voice in which to go to when I was able to find my own voice and listen to that, and then come to you with looking for guidance when I needed it.
Yeah.
So it was probably a bit of a challenge for them because we were like, oh, I don't know how it worked for them back of house, but it was like, I know from programs like that I've worked on where you're like you do as much as you can for the person, and actually I was asking them to do the opposite, and that was me needing to listen to what I needed and understand what I needed, and then being able to respect that, and they totally did. And I'm so appreciative of them to take a slightly unusual route and listen to something that was probably challenging for them to do and be like, oh, he just wants us to leave him to it. Okay, interesting. But yeah, it's an incredible opportunity for any queer, not just young, for any queer artists who have something to develop. They're incredibly supportive, knowledgeable. Their expertise is off the charts, and just a great bunch of people to be around. Yeah, so go check out the current cohort of queercore artists, even if their showcase isn't coming up, just check out their work because it's going to be fantastic as it is, and then make sure you get along to it because it's really exciting to see queer artists and queer work being celebrated and developed in that way.
Yeah, definitely.
So all praise Homotopia.
Shout out Homotopia, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's everything. We're going to wrap up now. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm just going to read out some very nice feedback. Sana says, as to the few I've made it to, my one-to-ones were so useful and informative. Thank you, Ciarán. And Jane says, thank you, Ciarán. This was immensely helpful. Thank you also for the one-to-one, which inspired me to do more. So thank you,
That's
everyone.
lovely. I'm so pleased.
Yeah, it's been a lovely residency. Lots more thank yous coming in. We have a few more things this week. We have Block Social, which is tomorrow. And then we have open mic on the 21st and block party on the 22nd. So block party is going to be a more public open mic night, so people can come along who aren't reading. So if you want to perform to more of an audience, sign up for block party, and just email info and we can get you a slot booked in then. It'd be really nice to see some work inspired by Ciarán's residency. That I think that'll be really exciting. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming. I'll see you soon, Ciarán. Oh, and thank you, Ciarán, for being a wonderful guest. I didn't even need to say much, so brilliant.
Just let me chat on up to that.
Okay, bye everyone. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mel. Bye.